The purpose of this video is to provide some poultry training to our inside and outside sales group. This is our start grow cage, and it is designed for birds to start from day old on up to probably about 16 weeks, depending on the height of the cage. To let you know how this fits into the growth cycle of chicken, of course, chick comes from an egg. When they're born, they're used to being under mama's wing, so they need higher temperatures than regular room temperature. Typically, you want to have them start out at a temperature of about 90 degrees. You can lower that temperature by about 2 degrees every 10 days until you get it to a normal room temperature. If your customer is asking for a cage that for day-old chicks, 1 day old, then they either need to be able to maintain the room up to 90 degrees or they need a brooder. A brooder is a cage just like this, except it has an auxiliary heating system. Once the birds get to normal room temperature, they can be put into this cage without the auxiliary heat. So if your customer is working with 2-week-old birds, they can go straight into this cage without having the brooder with it. After the grow cage, then we have adult cages, which this cage is 15 inches tall, and adult cages really need to be 20 inches tall. We have a standard product just like this 9-cage system that has 20 inches tall. That's to meet the NIH requirement of the bird being having sufficient head space. The materials on this start grow unit is all stainless steel except for PVC coated wire. The PVC coated wire we prefer to sell if the customer is not autoclaving. This material will easily handle 180 degrees in temperature, but if you run it through an autoclave, it will melt. So you need to know if your customer is autoclaving. If they are autoclaving, then we have a stainless steel mesh option that can go with this. All animals need food, water, and waste disposal. The feed on this cage is a feeder that is like this. This particular feeder is a welded feeder. We are now looking at a pop rivet feeder, which would be fine for food. But if they're going to water in this, they would need the fully welded feeder and water. This is a feed grate that can be adjusted. The challenge with the outside feeder is that we have to give the bird access to it. And a day-old bird can walk through a vertical 1-inch space. So we have to close down the feed grate here so that the small bird can't get through. But as the bird grows, its head gets bigger and it needs more space. So this is adjustable so that we can increase the space as the bird gets bigger, still keeping it in the cage. The water system that we're using is a commercial water system that is adjustable. This yellow in the back has 2 nipples in it. It can be adjusted up and down as the bird grows. Initially, when you start a bird, you want that nipple right at eye level. After they find the water, you start positioning it above their head so the bird can drink up. That's how they swallow. If you watch them get a drink out of a puddle, they'll raise their head to swallow. So that makes it very comfortable for them. It also lets that excess feed wash down their throat so you don't have as much feed waste. The distribution system, again, depends on how the customer is going to clean the cage. If they are going to autoclave, then we need to have a stainless steel system in here, and even the drinker itself needs to be a stainless steel adaptation. This is a commercial drinker, and it will handle 180 degrees. The distribution pipe is also a high temperature PVC, CPVC, so that it can handle 180-degree temperature. But if the customer is autoclaving, we need to change all of these parts over to stainless steel. This drinking system, this over here, this drinking system is a low pressure system that's used in the commercial poultry. On each tier it has a regulator, and you adjust the water in here so that it's just about 8 inches above the cage. That provides about a quarter pound of pressure, and that's just right for these type drinkers. Now if you go to a stainless steel option and you have like an Edstrom drinker in there for the bird to use, then you wouldn't have a regulator on each level. If we had only one regulator with this system, the pressure would be too great on the bottom, and it would have too much water waste. Going back to this system, typical connection to the water is using this quick disconnect. So you can connect it to your water hose outlet, and if you want to disconnect the water system, you just unclick this and then you can move the rack. Filling the water system, you want to get water going in it. Use the valves on the other end to let the water drain out. So you want water to be flowing through the main valve, main pipe, for a period of time to let the air get out. Then you close that off and manually trigger the drinkers to get the air out of that line. You want water at that nipple when the young birds first go in, because if they hit it 2 or 3 times and don't get water, they'll think water doesn't exist there. So that's the watering system. We talked about the feeding system. The flooring system in this one is 1x1 wire mesh. That is a little large for a day-old bird. First 10 days you want that day-old bird to have a smaller surface. So there's 2 options. One is a smaller plastic mesh that you can put in the size of the cage, and the bird can walk on that for the first 10 days. Then you can take this out and clean it. Again, it's not a high temperature plastic, so you would need to wash it and hand disinfect it. It cannot be autoclaved. Another option would be to take paper, such as this, and lay it on the floor. This prevents drafts from coming up, actually keeps the birds more comfortable. And as they're working in here and on it, they'll begin to tear it up. But again, after about 10 days, it's recommended that you take that paper out and dispose of it. It's a disposable paper. So once they get of that age, this 1x1 is sufficiently large for them to walk on. And of course, as they get older, their feces get bigger. It's also sufficiently large for the feces to drop through. Where it drops through is into this stainless steel manure pan. It again has welded corners, and it will not leak water. It sits right on top of the cage below it. And then of course the bottom one has a special rack for the pan for it. So they would clean this out at whatever frequency that they need to. The doors are designed to provide a maximum opening and give the ability to divide the cage in half. The reason the watering system is in the back and there's 2 doors, you can actually take this and put in an optional partition that will give you not 9 cages, but now 18 cages of half the size. The door divides right here in the middle. So you have 2 doors, 1, 2. These are spring-loaded slam latches, so when you shut it, it automatically closes and latches it in place. All the other components, as I said before, are stainless steel. One of the questions you're going to get is about the PVC coated wire. How durable is it? One of the sales points I make that really impresses them is this plastic is fused onto this wire. It's not a dip process that, like an electrical wire, that would strip off or would let moisture get around it. So it is fused on and really will not wear off for years. It's also a product that was developed for lobster traps used in saltwater. So it is extremely resistant to chemicals of any kind. We've had these systems in operation for well over 15 years with no problems. Another question a customer might ask, looking at the end of the cage, this wire is cut out of a roll. So we have bare metal ends sticking through. And they might say it's going to rust. Well, actually it is going to rust, but just very little. The very ends of those wires will get a small coat of rust on it. Those ends can be treated with another material if they want to prevent that rust. You'll also see underneath, when you look at the unit, that there is a bar going across the middle. It's a stainless steel 3/8 inch bar. What's that's doing is giving the floor more support. So as the bird's weight gets on there, it would normally belly out a little bit. Well, this will keep it more rigid and keep it up straight. The size of this cage is 2 foot by 2 foot. That means we have 4 square feet. If you look at the guide, NIH Guide for the Care and Use of Laboratory Animals, it says that a chick under 0.25 kilograms needs 1/4 of a square foot. So young birds, you can get 16 birds and meet the guide. If they get up to 500 grams, that is about 4 weeks of age. Then you have to allow 1/2 a square foot. So that means you can only put 8 birds in the cage. If they get up to 1 kilogram, then they need 1 square foot. So only 4 birds can go in this cage and meet the NIH guidelines. But that's up to 14, 16 weeks of age. And at that time, you'll start getting close to the height restriction that most facilities are comfortable with. Again, if they're going up to that age of bird, I would recommend this same cage unit, except for the 20-inch tall cage. It comes with hung casters like our typical equipment, swivel casters, all swivel with brakes on the front. And that is pretty much the entire features of the unit. Again, review this DVD we're giving you, and if you have more detailed questions, let me know on the show floor, and I'll go over these features again.